Okay, the Le Mans Blue E92 M3. Happy Sunday to you. I'm here by myself, and I've got a new trunk coming. I'll explain that while we start getting to work. But what I have is water spots. I got these from the pressure washing series. I made a mistake against my better judgment, and I tested the foam cannon on one of the wheels. I sprayed the car down with a pressure washer. The sun came out. I got distracted. I went inside, was messing with my email, and within 15 minutes, the sun and spots, the water spots, just etched the 50% of the car. The sun came out this way, and then half the roof, half the trunk, half the car, half the hood has water spots on it. I immediately brought it in. I said, oh crap, I bet you I got water spots. Started drying it off. I did have spots. Tried just normal cleaners, didn't work. Because a lot of times a spot will just leave a little mineral deposit and you just wipe it off. The car had just been corrected, had just been protected with Power Lock Colonite. I'd never gotten water spots in the 15 years or 10 years or however long I've been using that product. And this was the first time I've ever gotten spots from it, but this is the first time I've ever done something stupid like that, where I sprayed the car down and the sun hit it. Tried Car Pro Spot Free, the Kamikaze heavy scale remover. Eventually somebody sent me some IGL water spot remover. I had a couple of other ones. I don't remember which ones. Oh, I had Optimum MDR. None of them touched it. So that day I immediately started polishing, came to the conclusion that I needed to compound it with the chance that I knew the paint could swell. And sure enough, the paint swelled, the water spots went away, the car looked beautiful. I put Colonite and Power Lock back on the car, drove it around for a week, and then a week later, spots came back. Actually, Levi from the rag company said, "Ooh, you got water spots all over your car." So what happens with a spot? With a water spot, it's chemical etching. So think about this. I have a bubble of like a bubble of water. So like a water bubble that kind of sits, in a concave fashion that sits on the surface of the paint. Sun comes in, it acts as a magnifying glass. Any mineral deposits in that water spot are then kind of burned or etched into the surface of the clear coat. Clear coat eventually swells, grabs the chemical, holds on to it. So it's embedded in the surface. So the way to remove a water spot generally is to chemically remove it. I apparently got damaged deep enough that the chemicals weren't penetrating the surface of the clear coat. So what we're going to attempt to do today here is figure out what will work. I'm going to try a few steps, a few procedures to see what will work. I've got a new trunk coming. There was a dirt nib on this trunk from the painting process. This trunk was repainted once. I got in a front and rear, a front and rear collision. So the rear and front clip of the car have been repainted, and so this was clearly sanded, a little nib or a little paint run. And when I polished this the first time, that failed. And there's the paint isn't great on this. Plus, they beta linked this on, so I can't remove this. And so I have my buddies at IND. I just bought a new trunk. They're sending me a new trunk. I actually sent them the gas cap so they can match it. So what we're going to do here is clean it first, decontaminate it. I'm going to try a couple of other procedures first, and then we're going to figure out what works to get rid of the water spots. And I think what we're going to need to do is try to reinstate the conditions that created the spots, and it likely means I'll end up pulling it out in the sun, and then we'll see. We'll figure out what temp we need in order to get the clear coat to swell enough, not too much, but to swell enough to where the spots will just polish right out. And Jason Rose talked to me about this possibility. So let me grab some Glide. Let me wipe the surface down because the car is dusty, and we'll get moving. So first thing I'm going to do is just wipe this whole area down, just to clean it, just to clean the surface. And so since this trunk is being replaced, I don't have to be concerned about issues with blowing through the clear coat. Doesn't really matter to me. Glide is not a very good waterless wash. I just want to clean the surrounding area with something just to get the gunk off of it, so that way I can go ahead and start deconning it. So what I think I'm going to do first is I'm going to nano scan it, auto scrub it. Again, I haven't washed the car with decon soap, so that's one disadvantage. And you can see, hear that? This is when you know it's time to decon. So the car, I didn't wash it like I normally do. This is part of the complaints I have about having too many cars. But we're probably, I don't know how many months it's been, 10, 11 months since this happened, since I reapplied Power Lock. I've been topping it with bead maker. But eventually, after 8, 9, 10 months, you start to get some contamination, which means that your water behavior changes, which means that we've probably gotten through the colonite and maybe there's a little bit of sealant left and we're just simply topping with bead maker. So it's time to replace this. I've talked about this before. If you did just Power Lock, you're going to get a month or two of durability, I found. If you're going to do Power Lock topped with colonite and then treated with some sort of topper like bead maker or some sort of spray wax, I tend to get 8, 9 months out of it. You'll probably get less if it's your daily car. If you're driving every day, 6 months, 5, 6 months, you're going to want to do a light decontamination and light polishing. And that's largely why I've transitioned to coating cars. This car is going to get coated, and it's because coating lasts a lot longer. The reason I didn't use coatings when I first started making videos 5 years ago is that I didn't like them. They didn't look very good. And so coatings have come a long way over the last even just couple of years. And so this car is going to get treated with CSL XO once we figure out the procedure. Okay, step one, let's remove these contaminants. Actually, step one, let me show you what this looks like. So let's turn the lights off. Let me get a flashlight. Yeah, you can see those. And then as we work our way over to the right, they get progressively worse. See those? So the spots, in the sun, from 5 feet away, you can't see anything. And I'm starting to get all kinds of toweling, marring. This is what happens if you go too long in between applications and you don't keep the surface decontaminated. Then I end up, even with proper washing procedures, I end up with some surface marring and scratching. That'll come right out with polishing. But we're not going to get that kind of stuff with a coating once we fix it. There we go, you can see even better. So we're going to try to remove these. See that spot right there? There's a bazillion of them all over the surface. And what happened is when I polished those, I swelled the paint. They all disappeared for a few days, and then once the paint settled back down, they showed back up. Luckily, I didn't coat the car. And so we're going to figure out, part of the deal is I'm waiting for the trunk to come, so I'm going to decon this and then see if we can figure out how to get these spots off. See, look at that. And the thing is, once I decon this, it'll feel nice and smooth, so they're embedded in the surface. That's bad news. You can see they're all the way over here, so notice they get worse over on this side. All right, so now, step one is to auto scrub it. Sorry, I know I'm cutting my head off here, but let's work with it. Remember, you heard how crunchy it was. So this should remove all of that surface contamination. It shouldn't take much to do it. This should also remove some of my wax and stuff, whatever's left over. But we're also going to panel wipe this to hopefully get whatever's left. Now, if this was coated, we wouldn't be able to remove the wax and sealant as easily. Again, most of it's already gone because it's been almost a year. But I want to make sure that I've got a unadulterated surface so I can start trying different things. For dry wiping, I like waffle leaf towels the best, meaning I'm going to wipe it dry without any kind of aid. So this is where if I maintain the car better, and I knew this was, I knew it had the water spot, so I didn't maintain it like I normally do. All right, so you can hear no more crunchiness to the surface. So what I just did there will still lightly mar the surface. So if I didn't need to address any polish spots or anything, and I didn't have any scratches, I'd probably still want to jewel up the paint and still polish it a bit. So, I don't recommend that you decon it unless you have to, mechanical decon. We're not going to have to worry about any iron. I guarantee you I don't have any on this, so I'm not going to do any iron removal. But now I have a surface without any contaminants, just water spots. But let's do this. Let's wipe this down with a panel wipe. Hopefully pull off any sealant or wax left. I've got to get this in the store. I've been finding myself using this for applications like something like this. You shouldn't spray this on the surface like this, but I'm going to anyway. Because again, this trunk is going to be replaced. But this is about as close to body shop solvent as you can get. I don't have any body shop solvent here. That's another way you could make sure that you get all the wax and stuff off the surface. So normally you should spray this directly on the towel. I would be if I wasn't replacing this trunk. Is that a scratch I just introduced, or is that a scratch that just showed up? That's really odd. Okay, so now I want to try something. First, let me show you. Gosh, this big camera's hard to lug around. Let me show you the failed spot and why I'm better getting a new trunk. This paint is just not good. See it? You can see it easily. Right there. It looks a little more dramatic on camera than it does in person. But basically, what happened there. So again, basically what happened there is that the clear coat was thin, and I just did a couple of minor polishing passes, and it blew right through it. All right, so let's see if we can do something. I'd almost guarantee this isn't gonna work, but do something chemically. So let me get a beater towel. There was a number of suggestions from some old school pros that said, try Meguiar's wheel brightener. And so I don't know what the procedure is for putting this on, but I'm just gonna put it on here. But this is a acid-based wheel cleaner. And so I'm gonna try, see if this puts a dent in what we're working with here. Let me just tape a section off, just so I can isolate it. There's some heavy water spots. This is 3M Precision Poly tape. So now I'm gonna spray this area. Let's see procedurally. So let me set my stopwatch up. I'm gonna leave it on for 15 seconds, see what happens. Start. What I really need is some gloves. We're gonna leave it for 30 seconds. Okay, let's get it off. See if this worked any miracles. I don't think so. No dice. Did absolutely nothing. Yep. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Just try one more time. Just see if that maybe blew through the surface there. So let's kind of keep this contained. This is diluted 2 to 1. The sprayer failed. thought that was a chemical resistant sprayer. Well, I don't think it did anything. So, we're not that lucky. I'm just spraying some eraser on just to remove it. So I think what the likely procedure is going to be to get this off of here is to take it out in the sun. Yep, didn't do anything. So these are just embedded too darn deep. Not even a slight change. Other than now I've got some weird tape marks, so don't do that. Okay, so let's do, I think taking it out in the sun, the problem with taking it in the sun is I'm not going to be able to control the heat. And it's going to raise to whatever temperature it rises to, versus if I were to use a heat gun, it would probably be perfect to use an IR lamp. But if I were to use a heat gun, then I can bring it up to a certain temperature. Andy Ward was telling me, try bringing it up to about 125 degrees and then try polishing it. Once I figure out the right combination, the water spots should come right out. And then I could just repeat that procedure on the rest of the car. So let's try heat gun first. Okay, here we go. We're gonna stay 3-inch. I've taped off this area. Again, you already saw the water spots. Nothing's changed since I just showed them to you. I'm gonna stay within this little area here. I don't know why I didn't do it straight, but anyway, the tape's on here. And so now what I'm gonna do is heat it up. So I have my Fluke IR thermometer, which I bought specifically for this like a year ago. And so we're at 78 degrees right now. And so I want to try to bring this up to about 120. So let's try to bring this as evenly as we can up to 120. Got this really bad hose on my new air compressor set up. And then theoretically, if we get this up to the right temp, I'm hoping that this just comes right out. So let me get my pad ready. Some perfect finish, correction compound on here. So remember what's happening. I've never had to deal with this before. Any water spot I've ever gotten in the past would just polish right out. I've never had a water spot remover actually work, but I've always been able to just polish it right out, no problem. Okay, so we're gonna just have that ready to go. It'll be interesting to see how my new rotary screw compressor holds up to this. I built the scaffolding so that I could start taking the air lines down and start working on that here very soon. So actually let's do an even smaller area just so I can maintain control of heat. I don't like to use tape if I can help it, but this is where an IR lamp would probably work better. All right, so we're up to 100. I'm probably gonna have to go even smaller. Yep, in order to get relatively even heat, I'm gonna have to go with a small area, which means this could be very tedious. But just for the sake of this test here, let's stay really small. All right, so we're 86 degrees. Okay, that's 120 degrees. Let's try and let's see what that did as I make a polish mess. I think that worked, people. This tape is gonna mess me up. So I don't think we swelled it. Once I figure this out, I'll get you an angle so you can see what I'm doing here. Just wonder if this would be even easier if I took it out in the sun. I'm gonna take it to about 130. And that way by the time I get to it, it'll be the right temp. God dang, this hose is terrible. This was one of my tests. I think that's gonna do it. Yes. The spots are gone. And then I'm gonna have to go back and do some defect removal, but just touching it with a little bit of heat. Just pulling them out. Just wanna see something. Okay, I was worried that my compressor didn't have enough output, but I had it set to like 60 PSI or something like that. I'm gonna leave this here. So what I need to do is blow out the pad. I need more than one airline. We're gonna be pulling all kinds of gunk from the water spot minerals, so I'm gonna have to blow this out all the time. What I need to do is heat up this hose so it actually works. So this is terrible. This is a Prevost Sureflex, which is a plastic hose. Okay. So we're at 86 degrees. So even heating this here, the water spots aren't going away. I can still see them. Because that's what I don't want to do, is swell the paint up to where I can't see the spots. I just want to heat it up enough to try to recreate the conditions that created this problem in the first place. 119, 122, 125. I'm gonna have to do really small sections at a time as I lose my heat. Okay, up to about 130. Yes, rotary screw. It's like 50 dB, it's so quiet. Yeah, that's gonna work. Still gonna require me to chase some imperfections here and there. So I'm gonna pull the car and decon the whole thing at the house. Yeah, the ones came out of the middle, and not the side. I didn't concentrate enough right here. Wow, that's my screw compressor, and it's right there, 8 feet, 10 feet from me. I think it's gonna go faster if I heat small areas. And now that I know I just need to bring this up to temp, it might make sense to just pull it out in the sun and try that. See if I can do large areas at a time. That's the ticket, people. Heat, light polishing. Of course, we're gonna have to let this sit and make sure they don't come back. But that's the trick. So the first step will be to get all the water spots out. And then I'm gonna show you an A-B comparison here to show you that I'm not making this crap up. And we'll get you a different angle for some of the rest of this. But yeah, an IR lamp, like a handheld IR lamp would be the way to go. I might get shopping here tonight. Again, all the spots are still here when I'm heating it. That's what I want to make sure that I'm not bringing the paint up to 150 degrees, swelling it, and the water spots are just disappearing. I think I'm safe to say that I'm actually removing them here. Dang it. So in order to do anything to those water spots before, I had to make like 6 aggressive passes. And then again, I wasn't actually touching the water spots. I was just heating up the panel and making them disappear for a short period of time. Yes. Wow. And we'll do further refining. All right, let me bring you in here and get you a little better angle. I wanted to show you procedure and then we'll show you actual. So now let's get this tape off of here. I hate polishing with tape anywhere nearby other than taping off edges. Man, I wish you could see in the camera what I could see to my eyes. You can see a real haziness to just making a couple of passes. We need to do some serious refining here. But right now, accomplishment number one is to get the water spots out. I'm really wondering if I should just pull this thing out in the sun. I have so much more control over what's happening right now, though, than I do in the sun. Wow, that's amazing. I'm so pumped about that. Should have done this a darn long time ago. No spots, spots. Okay, let's see if I can get you in here on what I'm doing. Yeah, I've definitely got to blow out the pad after each set of passes. Okay, so here's my thermometer loading up here. I'm going to work on this area up here. So we're reading 80 something degrees. Let me give you a, yeah, so I'm reading 82 degrees. So I'm going to heat this up. So I've been bringing it up to like 129, 130. That way by the time I get to it, it's about 120 degrees. Okay. Polisher ready. Boom. Nailed it. Yes. And then I can see them start to come back in here. Oh man, I'm pumped. So procedurally, that's how we'll do it. We're already back down to 98, 100 degrees. So the paint's certainly not swelling. I think paint starts to swell at like 140, 150 and higher. Yes. I get my beloved M3 back to, there aren't any heads or anything left on that. I'm gonna finish this trunk out and I'm gonna let it sit here for a few days before I tackle the whole car and make sure they don't come back. I should be good because I know I didn't swell the paint. At least I don't think I did. At least not to the extent to where it's gonna cause the peaks of these things to disappear. But that's the procedure, that's the plan. My Fiat compressor is amazing. Oh, I'm so pumped. Wait till I get the dryer set up, the oil water separator all dialed. Oh man, it's gonna be so awesome. And then have my airlines run and all of that. It's so much, it doesn't vibrate the whole room. It's great. It's amazing. All right, I'm gonna turn on the Rogan podcast, go to town, keep doing that procedure. I'm gonna finish this entire trunk, and then I'm gonna try something to see if I have to wait, or I'm gonna try just working through finishing this out and finishing the polishing process on the whole thing. All right, so I'm not so confident anymore. I said, you know, what if I don't heat a spot and the water spots came right out? So I'm wondering if they're gonna come back. Or maybe I don't need to heat it all. So I'm gonna go over here and do this side, which has a bunch of water spots as well, and see, I don't know, because we know I've freaking hammered down on this whole car and they all came back. So the good news that I'm doing this trunk now is that we'll be able to figure out longer term with the rest of the car. So what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to do like, just try different combos. And then, so this side of the trunk, I'm not going to heat at all. I don't want to heat it if I don't have to. Just see what one pass does. Okay, nothing. That didn't do anything. The good news is my rotary screw compressor is working just fine with this polisher. All right, so that pulls them out. I'm still only, god dang, this thing keeps turning off. I don't know, man. Maybe it's just, they're just ripe to come out because it's been heated and swelled so many times. I don't know why they came back the first time. Yeah, I mean, we're less than 100 degrees from doing these passes. It'll be way better if I can do this without having to do any supplemental heating. And I can just roll through polishing. Yeah, I mean, we're getting up to like 95 degrees. So there's no way I even got to 120 when I was hammering down on this, I don't think. I'm baffled now. But this is exactly what happened the first time, where they disappeared and they came back. So I'm going to polish the rest of this. Again, this side I heated, this side I didn't. And we'll let it sit here for a few weeks. I'll leave it in here, I'll move it outside, I'll drive the car a little bit, and we'll kind of see, we'll assess, see what happens. Okay, all the water spots are definitely gone. Question is, will they come back? Well, let's finish this out and then we'll leave it be. I don't know, man. I don't know. Guess we're gonna find out over time. Maybe we already, when the first time I hammered on this car with heavy compound, maybe it just, I don't know, needed another swelling or another cycle. I'm baffled. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm not gonna protect the car. I'm gonna swap, I'm gonna bring the M5 in here, leave the M5, and then drive this around. I'm not gonna put any protection on it. See what happens if the water spots come back. Oh, I love this air compressor. Listen to that thing. It's so good. I'm sure it sounds even louder on your screen than it does in person. Okay, so now we'll see what happens. The only other thing that could be concerning is that this paint is a little different than the paint that's on the roof, because that's the original paint and this has been touched up. And now we don't have any water spots. And the interesting thing will be to see what happens here. Try to keep it out of the rain so that we don't end up with any new water spots that trick me into thinking they're old water spots coming back. Okay, so I felt really smart there for a second, and now I don't know. I don't know what to think. So we're going to find out, and I'm going to be sure to update you for sure on this, because we're going to be doing a full detail series. And so what I would hope is that I could skip the whole heating step, but I wonder if that's necessary in order to heat it up, because polishing I only got to about 100 degrees, whereas heating it up I got to 125. So I wonder, it almost looks a little nicer finish in the areas that I heated up. So I just wonder what's going to happen. So If they don't come back, the question would be why, right? So I've done this same procedure. In order to get the water spots removed the first time, or so what I thought was removed, I just had to do like 6 passes with M101 on all the surfaces. And so why did they come back a week later when I drove the car around and got it out in the sun, in and out of the sun, where it kind of heated and cooled a few times? So let's say that this side where I didn't heat the panel, let's say that the water spots came out. Why did it work this time? Was there just a little bit of residual effect from the heating and cooling? Did the contaminants come to the surface? You know, after it had swelled, did it just need another quick polishing? I guess that would be it. Or did it need to be heated in order to reinstate the conditions that created the water spot in the first place? I don't know. I'd be really interested to see. And if they all come back, then what do I do? Right. So if all these come back, I don't know what I'll have to do then. So anyway, interesting case study. Maybe you can provide some input. Those of you who have dealt with this kind of thing where you had stubborn water spots that kept coming back. At least I'm lucky I didn't coat the car. And so, you know, this is what it taught me about swelling and not swelling and water spots and dealing with them in that, you know, there have been some case studies of some guys who had coated the whole car and the water spots came back underneath the coating, and then they had to try to remove the coating. And some of the old coatings you had to sand off. I swear I can also see the spot where we use the acid. It's a little lighter. So anyway, thanks for any input you have, and I don't know, we'll get this thing figured out and get this car dialed back in. Thanks for watching. As always, stay tuned for more crazy.